I don't know, this is something that I actually have to step back and kind of like try to find a solution because I'm so tired.
For the past 2 weeks, Aryna Sabalenka has been caught in an awkward battle with her own Nike kit. Her 2026 US Open outfit, a bright orange top paired with a black mesh overlay, has been heavily criticized online, with some fans calling it one of the worst tennis dresses of the year. Others went even further, tagging Wilson and asking the rival brand to rescue her. Then, within the same 48-hour window, Nike appeared to shift the spotlight in a very different direction. Instead of the world number one, the reigning Indian Wells and Miami champion, Nike placed 21-year-old Filipina Alex Eala at the center of its 2026 US Open marketing push. And that contrast is hard to ignore. Eala has been a Nike athlete since 2019. This is not a recent 7-month experiment or a sudden marketing decision. Nike has had 7 years to build a relationship with her, dating back to when she was just 14. Sabalenka's situation has been varied. Despite becoming the WTA's top-ranked player, she reportedly waited more than 600 days before Nike provided her with a custom kit. That difference in treatment has become one of the most interesting storylines surrounding the brand's tennis strategy. Then came August 6th. Nike unveiled its 2026 Nike Court Slam dress in Old Royal Blue, featuring basketball-inspired black and white mesh detailing. The dress was priced at $140 on Nike's website, and the athlete Nike chose to prominently feature it was Alex Eala. The timing was brutal. Sabalenka's own US Open kit had already attracted significant criticism, with social media users questioning Nike's creative direction. One fan accused the company of losing its creative identity, while others openly encouraged Sabalenka to consider another sponsor. Reports also suggested that Sabalenka had encouraged her supporters to make their frustration with Nike known. That created an unusual image, the world number one publicly expressing dissatisfaction with her sponsor, while a younger, lower-ranked Nike athlete was simultaneously being positioned as the face of a major product release. You can understand why Sabalenka would be frustrated. She earned the ranking. She won major tournaments. She became one of the most recognizable players in women's tennis. From her perspective, the expectation for greater creative attention is completely understandable. But this is where emotion meets marketing. Sabalenka has openly discussed the attention Nike has given to other athletes, expressing her desire to receive the same kind of creative treatment. She also reportedly indicated that the following season would not necessarily bring the kind of special treatment she wanted. Those comments became even more significant once Nike continued pushing Eala. Eala appeared across Nike's channels wearing the Old Royal colorway before teasing another look, a mint green outfit on Instagram. 2 coordinated looks, 1 athlete, and a marketing push that appeared much more deliberate than a simple product placement. There is another important detail. The dress Nike gave Eala was not necessarily a one-off custom design created exclusively for her. It was part of Nike's broader Court Slam collection, meaning other Nike-sponsored players could also wear the same release at Flushing Meadows. That arguably makes Nike's decision even more interesting. Nike had a long list of elite athletes available to promote the product. Yet it chose Eala as one of the faces associated with the release. That is not simply about ranking. It is about marketability. Eala's marketing appeal has been growing faster than her ranking. She represents the Philippines, a huge and passionate tennis market, and her rise has created a cultural story that extends far beyond her match results. Nike has been building around that identity for years. At Wimbledon in 2025, Eala was associated with a Sampaguita-inspired heritage detail, referencing the Philippines' national flower. That kind of country-specific storytelling demonstrates a different approach to athlete marketing, one that connects the player not only to tennis, but also to national identity and culture. And that is where the comparison with Sabalenka becomes particularly interesting. Sabalenka appears to be asking Nike for more creative investment in her identity. Eala is already being marketed through hers. The distinction is subtle, but powerful. One player is asking for the spotlight. The other is increasingly being placed under it. Across social media, the contrast became impossible to miss. Tennis fans compared the two reveals side by side, praising Eala's look while criticizing Sabalenka's. Media coverage amplified the backlash, and TikTok creators turned the comparison into an even bigger conversation. None of this means Nike is abandoning Sabalenka. It does, however, suggest that Nike sees something valuable in Eala's current trajectory. Her ranking is only one part of the equation. The other part is momentum. Eala is 21, globally recognizable, nationally celebrated, and still early enough in her career for Nike to build a long-term commercial story around her. Sabalenka, meanwhile, is already an established superstar with a completely different marketing profile. So the real story may not be that Nike chose Eala over Sabalenka. It may be that Nike is building two very different strategies around two very different athletes. But when the world number one is publicly asking for the kind of attention another Nike player is receiving, the comparison becomes impossible to avoid. And right now, Alex Eala appears to be getting exactly the kind of marketing momentum that Sabalenka has been asking Nike to give her. 2 Nike releases. One window. One celebrated, the other mocked. The rankings tell one story. The market appears to be telling another. If this were nothing more than Reddit threads and TikTok reactions, it would be easy to dismiss as internet noise. But it goes deeper than that. Earlier this year, Forbes published a feature by contributor Marisa Lawrence Corbett titled, "Why Alexandra Eala Could Be Tennis' Next Global Trailblazer." That kind of coverage matters. A major business publication does not casually position a 21-year-old ranked around the top 20 as a potential global trailblazer. Forbes was making a market argument. And months later, Nike appeared to make a similar calculation by putting Eala at the center of its US Open campaign. Then there is Tony Nadal, the Hall of Fame coach and uncle of 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal. His public support for Eala after her Washington title added another layer to the story. The message was not simply that she had potential. It suggested that people with deep knowledge of the sport were beginning to recognize what her supporters had been saying for years. Forbes saw the commercial opportunity. Tony Nadal saw the tennis potential. Nike appears to have connected the two. That makes this bigger than a tennis dress. It could represent a change in how Nike decides which players deserve the biggest marketing spotlight. For decades, the formula was relatively straightforward. Ranking mattered. Championships mattered. Superstar status mattered. Players such as Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova, Naomi Osaka, and other established icons became the faces of major campaigns because their position at the top of the sport translated naturally into global attention. But Nike's decision to prominently feature a 21-year-old Filipina ranked around number 20 alongside, or in some promotional contexts ahead of, more established stars suggests that another metric is becoming increasingly important. Market reach. Eala represents something different. She has a massive Filipino audience behind her, a rapidly growing international profile, and a story that extends beyond the tennis court. Her social media posts can generate enormous engagement, while her biggest matches have attracted unprecedented attention from Filipino fans. For a global sportswear company, that audience is valuable. And Southeast Asia represents a huge market where tennis brands have historically had room to grow. Nike does not have to wait for Eala to become world number one before investing in her. It can build the commercial story while she is still climbing. The next major test comes in New York. As the US Open approaches, both Eala and Sabalenka will arrive with completely different narratives surrounding their Nike relationships. One has been questioning the creative attention she receives from her sponsor. The other is increasingly being positioned as a young athlete with global marketing potential. And after New York comes the Asian swing, including major events in Beijing and Wuhan. That timing matters. For Eala's Filipino supporters, this is bigger than another endorsement campaign. For years, tennis fans in the Philippines could watch the biggest tournaments without seeing a player from their own country represented prominently in global tennis marketing. Now they are watching one of their own become part of the conversation. Not as a courtesy appearance. Not as a background athlete. As a campaign face. But Eala's rise does not mean she is unbeatable. On August 15th in Cincinnati, She lost to world number 10 Amanda Anisimova in the round of 32, 6-4, 6-2, ending her 5-match winning streak against top-tier opposition and slowing the momentum of her ranking climb heading into New York. It was a real setback. But Eala did not turn the loss into a public excuse. Days later, she appeared in a Nike-produced US Open campaign video wearing the court slam dress. She simply moved forward. And that contrast is fascinating. Sabalenka has publicly expressed frustration about the creative attention Nike gives other athletes. Eala has largely allowed the brand to speak for her. 7 years of Nike's relationship with Eala. A heritage-inspired Philippine detail on court. A major slam collection featuring her. A growing global audience. And now a prominent place in the US Open marketing cycle. Put all of those pieces together, and the message becomes difficult to ignore. Nike may not be choosing Eala because she has already surpassed Sabalenka on the tennis court. It may be choosing her because the company believes her commercial ceiling is enormous. That is the real shift. The ranking used to determine who received the spotlight. Now, the market may be helping determine it. And by that measure, the 21-year-old Filipina that supporters have been talking about for years may be becoming one of Nike's most interesting long-term bets in women's tennis. So here's the question. If you were Nike's chief marketing officer heading into the US Open, who would you put at the center of the campaign? The world number 1, who has publicly expressed frustration with your creative direction? Or the 21-year-old rising star whose fan base represents an enormous untapped market? Make your case in the comments. And if you want to follow this story as Eala heads through the US Open and into the Asian swing, subscribe now. Because if Nike really is changing the formula for tennis marketing, we may be watching the beginning of that shift, not the end of it.